Hello and welcome to 20-Hour Reviews. After more than 20 hours of gameplay, we are reviewing Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. For these games, I wouldn't recommend buying either copy unless you are an avid Pokemon fan or simply want to re-experience a nostalgic game. The most recent Pokemon games tend to be better, but let's break it down. If you go on to enjoy this, please like, subscribe, and take a look at my socials down in the description. I stream games on Twitch and do a podcast style review for 20-Hour Reviews there as well. The VOD for this one isn't going to be on YouTube, but the next one will be, so if you want to join in on the discussion, catch me there. These games are remakes of the DS versions of Diamond and Pearl from 2006. For this video, I'll be reviewing them as their own games rather than remakes, both because they cost the full price of a AAA Nintendo game and because I hadn't played this generation before. I played through Shining Pearl for this review. Overall, the best part of Shining Pearl was its presentation, which holds up much better than the moment-to-moment gameplay. The visual style of these games is broken up between two sets. The overworld, where you spend most of your time running around from encounter to encounter, is presented in a chibi anime style. There's a bit of contention on the internet about this decision, and initially I didn't like it much either, but over time I grew fond of it. It's got a soft, round, and gentle presentation that is easy on the eyes but still has enough detail to be visually appealing in most areas. In battles, the character models and the Pokemon models appear to be the ones from Pokemon Sword and Shield, which is great. The models look good, crisp, and sharp. The effects that are used for your moves are typically stylistic and interesting to watch. The music in this game is well done across the board. The town music typically reflects the mood of the area, with only a couple of exceptions like Orberg, which I felt was a bit much. The battle music, as with most Pokemon games, is exciting. The legendary Pokemon and Elite Four music stood out, as you might expect, as great hype BGMs. Controlling your character is pretty intuitive. Like many of the modern games or remakes, you can run around with the joystick or move on a grid like the old games using the D-pad. The only minor annoyance was that in tight areas I found myself grinding up against walls and corners to fit through smaller passages and doorways. Since the battles are turn-based, the controls are very basic and gameplay is done through menu selection. It's easy to understand, and after 25 years of development, there's very little change to this game structure. The gameplay of Pokemon games has changed very little over the last 2.5 decades. You travel around the Sinnoh region, exploring various areas typically defined by one dominant trait, like snowy mountain, grassy plain, or rocky cave. Most of the time spent traveling is to progress the story or the gym crawl by following a mostly linear sequence of events. Usually this involves finding and talking to specific people, traveling to certain towns, or battling gyms. Normally, the only blockades outside of battling while traveling are things like rocks, cuttable trees, or bodies of water you'll need to traverse using what used to be HMs. There are no HMs in this game. Instead, once you get the badge you need, a wild Pokemon, usually a Bidoof, will perform the action for you. Since the presentation of the game is well done, traveling through Sinnoh can be an enjoyable trek. Unfortunately, I found that every leg of the journey felt like it was nearly constantly interrupted by battles. This may sound like an odd complaint, as Pokemon battles are the core game loop of these games. But when you just want to get from A to B, it can be frustrating dealing with a slew of trainers and wild battles. Based on more than my own experience, this typically leads to people just mashing A and B to skip through dialogue boxes and get through the battles as fast as possible. As me and my friends went through the game, we also found that we ended up at a much higher level than any of the surrounding trainers or wild Pokemon, which made encounters feel much more like a nuisance. I don't think this is explicitly because of the natural EXP all that is always on, and while I used the free Jirachi that you can get by having a sword or shield save, my friends didn't, and they had a similar experience. The battles can be a lot of fun, but I found the only ones with any excitement were the gym leaders, at least until I got to the Elite Four. For most of the battles in the game, you don't need to think very hard about them, and simply using super effective moves will likely carry you all the way to the Elite Four. This is where battling suddenly feels like it has a lot of life and excitement, as the Elite Four and Cynthia can be very difficult. They will change out Pokemon for tight matchups, use buff and debuffs, and generally feel like they have a much better AI package than any other challenge in the base game. Unfortunately, this is one of the main reasons I can't really recommend this game these days. The core loop of the battles just wasn't very fun for much of the main story. The second reason I can't recommend this game is because of the story. Pokemon games almost have a certain notoriety for having terrible stories, and this being the 4th generation of Pokemon games really exemplifies this. There are two main stories in this and most Pokemon games. The first is your own personal story of becoming the Pokemon champion. This is usually mostly internal and more about how you build or grow your team, though there are some little personal side stories here and there. The only problem is that they're all bad, and just there to waste your time, it feels like. It's not uncommon to arrive at a city only to be not able to challenge a gym for some arbitrary reason, which in universe and as a player is super annoying. The gym leaders rarely seem to actually be at their puzzle gyms, which should be their only and main job. This is used explicitly to waste the player's time. The two worst examples of this are the first and last gyms. Each of these gym leaders are out and about waiting for you to go fetch them with no real story involved. It's just a waste of the player's time to go and tell these people to do their jobs. You find them, talk to them, and then you are allowed to do their gyms. The second part of the story is the criminal syndicate Team Galactic. This is a very typical and dull story where we have yet another criminal group stealing Pokemon, trying to capture a legendary Pokemon for world domination or ultimate power. Cyrus, the leader, wants to destroy and rebuild the world how he imagines it. But as with most of these syndicates, Team Galactic is just a boring group of enemies. Most of the time they're just there to block you off from going to certain areas or waste your time with more easy to win battles. The leaders are more interesting, but come off as being just powerful sandbags for you to throw your Pokemon against. I will say that if nothing else, Team Galactic stands out as being one of the only groups that straight up commits acts of terrorism through bombing multiple lakes. Overall, the story feels like it's just getting in the way of my Pokemon journey rather than enhancing it. There's no real moral, the team has no real ideology, and the battles are not very exciting. I approached my battle with Cyrus with all the excitement of taking on youngster Joey. The multiplayer of this game seems to be mostly set up for small groups of 2 to 4 people, though you can join in global lobbies, or type in a room code to battle and trade with other players. We found in general that these lobbies were mostly empty. The global rooms would sometimes have a couple of players at best, and sometimes with room codes, we just found that there would only be 1 or 2 people running in circles, even if we typed in something simple like all ones. There are better games and websites for Pokemon battles, so I feel like the only real use here is for trading, either to evolve your Pokemon or for the Pokedex. The Underground is actually an interesting addition. I spent a couple of hours here mining for statues, items, and shards. You can also catch and battle high-level Pokemon in little environmental rooms that cater to specific types of Pokemon. You can build a secret base here and decorate it with little statues, which boost the chance of running into that type of Pokemon, but I never ended up doing this myself. You can also go into other people's secret bases and activate the type bonus that they have set up. In general, I like the Underground. It was a good addition. The contests in this game are not very fun. It's built on 2 steps. One is raising your Pokemon's contest stats, beauty, coolness, cuteness, etc. with Poffins, and the second is by playing in the actual contests. The Poffin minigame is not fun. You add berries to a Poffin and stir it until it's done. If you add 2 of the same berry, it becomes a foul Poffin. I tried for about an hour to get a high level Poffin, and from what I can tell, the only thing that really determines the level of a Poffin is the rarity of the berries used. It used to be that making Poffins with friends is how you made high level Poffins, but we couldn't figure out how to make Poffins together. The feature may have been removed or we may have simply missed it. I made a couple of level 50 Poffins, but most of the time they were level 8 to 12-ish. The contests themselves are a simple rhythm game using 1 button. The background music changes depending on the type of contest, but there's really only 1 song per contest and they aren't great. You can use a move once per contest to get bonuses depending on the move, but overall, They aren't very exciting, and they feel like they're mostly just here for completionists. There is a battle tower in the post game. This is typically where you'll be going if you're wanting more of a challenge with the teams you have built. These challenges are a little bit more in line with the battles of the Elite Four. I didn't get to this in my playthrough, but I did want to mention it, as usually this is where you're going to go if you want to get a fight with structured rules. Usually Pokemon are level locked, item use is limited, and after winning battles, you can get points to spend on rarer TMs to teach to your Pokemon. In the post-game, you can get various legendaries. Some are universal between games, like the Lake Spirits or the Reggies, while others are locked to certain games. The legendary dogs can be found in Diamond, while the legendary birds are in Pearl, for example. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are fine games. The main story and core loop felt at best lukewarm for the majority of it, and at the worst points were outright annoying. As a conclusion, this really does feel like going back to an old Pokemon game with a new coat of paint on it. If there's anything I've gotten out of this, it's that the newer games were a little bit more enjoyable in general, but the Pokemon formula is old and needs to change. Game Freak is not good at telling engaging stories with their worlds. And while the idea of raising and battling Pokemon is fun, it's also kind of worn out and a bit tedious at this point. Like I said at the beginning, I would only recommend this game to avid Pokemon fans or nostalgia junkies. Otherwise, watch an entertaining streamer or a Let's Player like Small Ant do something fun with the game. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.